I was out walking the other day, raw dogging, no headphones, no podcast, no matcha latte, just walking. Like some guy in a novel who's about to discover his wife's having an affair or that he never had a wife to begin with. And this very stupid, very dangerous thought crept into my head once again. And I've had it a few times before, but it really dug its claws into me for the first time in a long time. Is any of this real? And the thing is, it doesn't feel fake. It feels serious. The urgency is real. The metrics are real. The deliverables are extremely real. But underneath all that, I don't know. There's something soft, a layer of insulation, like everything is being built on top of a big invisible mattress, and everyone's bouncing on it crazy style, in business casual. Flashback to the first time I had this thought. My first job right after graduating, headfirst into a recession that, like an aging dog, has never really stopped pissing on the carpet. It didn't hit me in the first few weeks, which were just onboarding. A polite labyrinth of HR faces and welcome slides, all smiling in the same way you smile when you're trying to convince a cat to like you. The job felt real then. They had me sign things. They gave me a MacBook and a company logo coffee mug, like an organ donor cooler for productivity. It was maybe 4 months in, sitting at one of the desks in the shared space office downtown, when the fog started to thin. That's when I realized the actual work was nothing. Not easy, not chill, just nothing. Like being told you're in the army, then being handed a Nerf gun and a promise that the enemy's out there somewhere. I was supposed to automate account management and customer success and drive engagement. In practice, this meant watching emails like a cuck and rephrasing Google alerts until they seemed strategic. Whole days could be spent in that kind of circular discussions where nobody says this is pointless, because saying that would mean you're pointless. There's this invisible rule in tech. You can't call the make-believe by its name. If you do, the spell breaks. And if the spell breaks, everyone has to go home. And that's the last thing anyone wants, because home is where the dread lives, pacing in the kitchen. It's funny how quickly you learn the choreography. You start nodding in meetings at the right time, asking questions you already know the answer to, pretending to take notes so you look engaged. You make the right little laughs when someone drops the company in joke. Oh my god, Jeff from pre-sales, classic Jeff. As if Jeff from pre-sales isn't just a guy who wore a ducky tie to the office once. You start wearing the costume too, the muted sweaters, the leather boots, the Fitbit you don't actually need. Not because anyone told you to, but because showing up in your actual personality would be a breach of etiquette. Corporate life is like a swingers party where everyone keeps their clothes on. You can imply all sorts of things, but God forbid you actually do them. Somewhere in there, ambition creeps in. Not real ambition, not the kind that builds cathedrals or writes novels, but synthetic ambition like decaf coffee. You start caring about your ARR metrics like the way a kid cares about getting all the monopoly money, ignoring the fact that the bank is infinite and everyone's still going to die in jail. I think about the work we were doing and it's hard to even describe without laughing. The product itself, a knowledge enablement platform. We sold it to companies who bought it so they could say they adopted cutting-edge tools and then forgot it existed within 6 months. But the meetings about this product, those were sacred. People would lean forward like they were being briefed on the moon landing. We need to really optimize the onboarding experience for cross-functional collaboration. Nobody knows what that means, but we all nodded like coke-riddled pigeons because the rhythm of agreement was more important than the content. It was in those moments I look around the table and realize we're all just adult children playing a game so we can pay rent. And the only difference between us and kids playing house is that kids don't try to turn a profit off it. There's a point where you realize most people's identities are just marketing campaigns that never went public, half-baked mission statements, mood set to professional, photos cropped so the mess is out of frame. You scroll through LinkedIn and everyone is thrilled to announce a new role, but no one is thrilled 3 weeks later because by then the congratulations have already expired, the dopamine has cooled, and you're just another salaried organism carrying the brand forward. The danger isn't that we're lying, it's that we've agreed to live inside the lie. Like tenants who keep paying rent even after the landlord dies because that's easier than figuring out the paperwork. I used to think that the problem was that nobody's authentic. But authenticity isn't the goal here. A truly authentic workplace would collapse in under 3 hours. First, the guy who hates his boss would say so, loudly. Then someone would ask, why are we doing this at all? And half the office would just go home. The other half would follow because they realized going home is just another kind of unpaid overtime. Once I noticed the make-believe at work, it started bleeding into everything else. It's like when you realize a laugh track is playing and then suddenly the show feels unbearable to watch. Everyone's smiling too widely. Everything's lit too evenly. You can't unsee it. So then I started seeing these couples, friends, acquaintances, co-workers, exes of friends, ex-friends, people in long-term relationships that have become small domestic kingdoms, a two-person government with shared bylaws and a composting strategy. And I don't mean that with disdain. I just mean there's a very specific shape to it now. One partner, 0 friends, and a silent understanding that this is what adulthood is. Partnership as infrastructure. They seem functional though. They post birthday photos, they know where the good avocados are sold, they've figured out how to make Sunday feel less like a punishment. But when you talk to them, really talk to them, which is rare, it's not happiness you hear, it's containment. There's a kind of ambient loneliness that seeps out of them, but it's sealed under layers of logistics, joint calendars, weekly movie nights, meal prep, Amazon returns, all of it working like insulation, keeping the structure intact, keeping the outside world out, and keeping the question, is this it, from ever getting loud enough to echo. You say I love you like you mean it, and you do in that moment, but under that there's a quiet transaction. You're trading the truth for stability, real feeling for a mutual agreement to keep pretending neither of you will change. Love in its adult form is less about passion and more about being two people who've silently agreed to carry each other's bags through airport security without opening them. Because being alone is unbearable, and friendship is complicated, and the easiest way to stay human in late-stage capitalism is to have a single emotional point of failure and call it love. But then there's this other group, the ones who hate that lifestyle, loudly, passionately, ironically. They make memes about it, they call it heteronormative decay. They dunk on every guy who stops replying or making plans after he gets a girlfriend. But they're not resisting it, they're orbiting it. They've just chosen to make believe in a different direction. Instead of romance as identity, they pick self-awareness, cynicism as a brand. An entire generation of people cosplaying as the underdog in a war that doesn't exist. It's all defense, no offense. No exit plan, just a long, gentle war between people pretending to be happy and people pretending not to care. And I don't know which side I'm on. Probably whichever one feels less embarrassing that particular day, or whichever one involves less shaming. Once you've noticed that your job's not quite as necessary as you'd like and everyone's relationship is a soft-focused reenactment of human connection, you start looking around for someplace that feels real. And unfortunately, the next place your eyes land is the internet. Which is like trying to find truth in a carnival mirror. Everything's distorted and sticky and smiling too hard. Most of us now live partially as characters. We edit, we caption, we perform sincerity for strangers. I don't mean that in a judgmental way, I do it too. I'm doing it right now. This video is a character. It's me but cleaned up, paced. Scored with pauses and rhythm and a sloppy attempt at me composing human music playing in the background. And cuts. So many cuts. We all curate, even the people who claim to be unfiltered, especially them. There's a specific kind of person now who's learned to package their breakdowns, to process things in public before they process them in private. We've all become something adjacent to actors, except there's no script, no director, and no cut. Just you live streaming your slow descent into irrelevance because the algorithm doesn't find your sadness interesting anymore. It's not that people are fake, it's that the medium requires a kind of distortion. The more performative you become, the more attention you get. The more attention you get, the more you feel obligated to keep performing. And eventually you start to forget what it felt like to be off stage. Even your silence becomes a performance, a calculated absence, a story someone tells about you in an old post comment section. She hasn't posted in weeks, I hope she's healing. She's just tired, man, or out of mobile data, or watching Love Island with the man she hates. But you project a narrative onto it because that's all we know how to do now. Turn people into arcs, into symbols of something. The worst part of it is when you catch yourself doing it in private, pausing mid-laugh to think that would have made a good clip, writing captions in your head while walking alone, practicing your front camera face in a storefront reflection, which feels like jerking off to a photo of yourself but without the dignity. And it's not vanity, it's just that you've spent so long watching yourself that you can't stop now. You become your own audience. Sometimes I wonder if pretending is the only thing holding the whole thing up. Maybe that's not even a problem. Maybe that's just our species. You make believe your job is important so you can wake up and go. You make believe your partner completes you so you don't have to ask scarier questions. You make believe you're becoming your best self so you don't have to grieve the fact that you're probably not. Though you did just buy a $90 skincare serum, so who knows. And the make believe works. It pays bills, it gets you out the door, it helps you keep eye contact with your parents. Sometimes it even makes you feel strangely proud, like you've tricked reality just enough to keep playing. But then there's this moment that happens, rare, unplanned, where the act slips. No one's around, your inbox is quiet, you eat a meal with no music on, and for a second there, nothing is being optimized. No content is being generated, you're just there. And the silence isn't peaceful, it's loud. It says, you don't know what you're doing. You never did. You've just been extremely convincing about it. And the terrifying thing is that this isn't sadness. This isn't even a crisis. It's just a clearer than usual glimpse of the actual terrain. The blank space beneath the scaffolding. Because under all the roles, worker, partner, persona, adult, there's just this very quiet creature who still wants to be held. Or at least acknowledged. Not with a like or a laugh or a round of applause, just noticed, preferably by someone who's washed their hands. But the longer you keep the act going, the harder it is to find your way back to that version of yourself, the one who isn't trying to be anything, who isn't building a brand or curating a personality or trying to make their life look like a well-liked sitcom. That version gets quieter, until eventually you start to forget what you were even faking in the first place. What scared me most about that first job wasn't the boredom. It was how easy it was to start thinking that this was life. That this endless loop of projects, lunches, and quarterly goals was the point. You could tell yourself you were building skills or making connections, but most of the time you were just perfecting the art of being busy without doing anything dangerous. No risks, no grand attempts, no cracks in the mask. And the longer you stayed, the more the mask fused to your face. And then one day you'd wake up, look in the mirror, and realize you've become the role entirely. You've forgotten your lines weren't yours to begin with. Anyway, I didn't have some great epiphany on that walk. I didn't quit my job or throw my phone into the river. I just kept walking, past a bakery that smelled like it was using fake fragrances to attract customers, past a bus stop where everyone was staring into a different screen, past a couple sitting side by side but scrolling separately. And it was fine. The sky wasn't making a point. The street wasn't teaching me anything. It was just a walk. I still showed up to meetings the next day. I still tried to sound convincing when I talked about strategy. I still checked my phone in case someone had said something about me somewhere. But now there's this awareness. Not a completely new one, but a more nuanced understanding of it. Not even a sharp one. More like a faint hum behind the wall. This reminder that a lot of what we're looking at is set dressing. And maybe that's okay. We make believe our way through so we don't have to see the thing directly. We give each other permission to keep pretending by pretending back. So I don't have a fix. I don't even have a point, really. Just that every so often when the pretending feels a bit too tight, it might be worth stepping outside. Walking until you're just a person on the street. Not a worker, not a partner, not a persona, just some idiot with bad posture staring at clouds. And then you can go back to the meeting, back to the couch, back to the feed, because the game is still running and someone has to keep the lights on.